Hey there. So let's talk about why most web designers are staying low ticket. In fact, even web designers who used to be higher ticket and higher on the spectrum when it comes to what you can charge for your work are actually seeing their prices going down. Um, it really comes down to the difference between presenting solutions versus delivering results. And I want to dive into that because I know we talk about this from time to time, but I think that today you'll get some extra clarity on what the difference is between presenting solutions and delivering results and how that impacts what you can charge for your work and how you interact with your clients. There's a lot that kind of goes into that, and I'd like to kind of jump into it. But I'm Lee Blue. To introduce myself, I'm Lee Blue, founder of DoubleStack. And if you're thinking, man, I wish I could upgrade the quality of my clients and build out my own six-figure web design business, then let's get on the phone and talk. We can do that. You can schedule a time to talk over at doublestack.net/call, and you'll see my calendar pop up, and we can get on the phone and talk about stuff. But here's the thing. Well, incidentally, as a side note, I just was in a presentation not long ago, earlier this morning, about somebody presenting on the $10,000 website strategy or something. I can't remember the exact title of the presentation, but it's something along those lines. And he begins to go through like the traditional 5-step process, right? It's like the discovery session, the strategy session, right? So discovery is like, what does the client really want? Strategy, how do we actually pull that together? Development, now let's actually do it. Then review it with the client and then launch. It's like everybody goes through those 5 steps. And this, of course, was supposed to be the secret sauce to building this $10,000 website. And a couple things popped into my head when watching that presentation. One is, if this whole 5-step process is so unique and so great and is really the secret to unlocking these high ticket clients, why does everybody always come up with the same 5 pages to put on everybody's website, right? It's always the home page, the about page, contact us, services, and then some sort of evidence-based page, which is going to be like your testimonials or your portfolio or something like that. And if you really want to get fancy, put a blog into the mix or something, right? It's like, how can it possibly be that everybody literally is legitimately going through this 5-step discovery strategy kind of session and always arriving at the exact same conclusion for everybody? So everyone basically has the same website, right? The same 5-page site. So, hey, Heather, it's good to see you. So what's the deal with all of that? And so that's just kind of my beef with the whole thing. It's like, it's not even legitimate, which is the problem. It's like, people kind of go through the motions, but don't actually arrive at any new conclusions. And then they put a high ticket price on it. And I think that's not the way to go. Now, some people can do it that way, fine, but that's not the way I roll. And because of this whole solutions versus results thing that we're about to dive into. So now I know I'm going to be splitting hairs a little bit and definitions are playing a role in all of this. But what I really mean is, so let's define a couple things real quick. What I mean by solutions is like, so what is a solution? A solution is something that solves a problem, right? That's kind of how I'm defining what a solution is. It's something that solves a problem. Whereas delivering results is something that actually achieves the end goal that your client is looking to achieve at a higher level than, hey, it's Robin. Good to see you, Robin. At a higher end than just to individual problem. It involves a multitude of solutions is really what I'm referring to as delivering results for clients. So for example, like what is a problem, right? And this is an important thing. So I'm going to go through how web designers tend to think of problems. And then we'll contrast that with how clients tend to think of their problems. And then I think you're going to begin to see a difference. So with web designers, most of the time you kind of start up at, or maybe work it up from the bottom. We kind of start at the technical level, right? So like you'll look at a website and you be, man, that site's not loading fast enough. They don't have an SSL certificate, no alt tags in the images, like all of these things that kind of jump out to people like you and me, where we're saying, oh, look, the website itself has technical problems and we could solve that, right? So then you could have a solution to solve those technical problems. So there goes solution number 1. And then like the next step up from that tends to be like communication or branding level problems, which would be like not clearly explaining what the product or the service is that your client's offering, just kind of having a lot of just haze and confusion around who it's for and what the call to action is, or having a brand that just appears too amateur for the reality of the kind of the level of service that your client can deliver, Or maybe it's something more like not having an email list or something like that, where you just don't really have the ability to do the communication for whatever reason. So, kind of level 2 is sort of like some kind of branding / communication problem. And of course, we're individually listing lots and lots of problems along the way, right? We've probably gone through a dozen problems already with like no alt tags on the images, site's too slow, no SSL certificate, no email list, no, the branding's wrong, no, all the different things we just talked about. We're listing all of these problems. And I'm trying to kind of chunk them together. Like level 1 problems, technical. Level 2 is kind of communication and branding. And then you kind of go up another level to like level 3, which would be like lead generation style problems. And we begin to kind of move into what you might be thinking of as kind of results at this point. But what I mean by like lead generation problems would be like poor search engine performance, or a lack of inbound links to your site so that you don't really have a lot of domain authority, or you haven't really established an online community, you don't have an audience or a following, something like that. And that tends to be like a lead generation level problem. And then like a 4th level, now we're getting into like business problems, which would be like, there's been a drop in revenue, or it's hard to meet payroll, or we're spending too much time working in the business and I don't have enough time to work on the business, so I'm kind of just stuck on the hamster wheel kind of a problem. Just feeling kind of stretched too thin. And that begins to bump us up to kind of the 5th and the top tier problem category of problems. It's kind of like life problems that are resulting from all of these other things that have added up. And what I mean by life problems, I'm talking about like, you're always at work, you never have any home life, and so that like the work-life balance is completely out of whack. There's friction at home over finances, and you're just feeling stressed out all the time. Like life problems, right? And so you kind of begin to stack up all these problems. So you got these tech problems, communication problems, like lead generation problems, business problems, and then all the way at the top is like these life problems. So you have this stack of problems. And so then what happens is web designers will also say, well, they want to say, I want to deliver solutions. I don't want to just build websites. I want to deliver solutions. And where everything tends to kind of unwind and fall apart is that the solutions don't address all of those problems that we just talked about, right? It's usually a solution for just a subset of the problems. For example, well, before I get into example, let me tell you why most web designers stay low ticket. They stay low ticket because web designers and clients approach the problems from opposite ends, right? The web designers tend to approach the problems starting at the technical side. And so how can I get the site to load faster? Get the SSL certificate on there. Get all the on-site SEO stuff set up, alt tags, meta descriptions, all that kind of stuff. Technical things that we can do. And then maybe we'll bump up to like communication style problems, like, helping with search engine rankings, getting inbound links, building an online community, stuff like building an email list, whatever. And we kind of begin to work our way up kind of from the bottom. But clients, they work their way down from the top. Like the first thing they're thinking about is there's so much stress at home. Like we don't have the finances to do what we want, and I'm bickering all the time, and I can't sleep, and I'm stressed out, and life problems are really at the forefront of their mind. And then right beneath that, they're thinking, I can't pay the payroll, I'm working too much, I'm stretched too thin, the revenue's falling, all of these kind of business problems. So the clients are kind of working their way down from the top, and web designers tend to work their way up from the bottom, and the clients don't care about the stuff at the bottom at all, unless it impacts the stuff at the top. And that's really where the value problem is really, comes to life. It's like, most web designers are solving these very low value problems kind of down at the bottom level, whereas the clients are looking for these high value types of solutions near the top level, and they're not meeting. That's where there's this giant value gap between what web designers are trying to solve versus what the clients really need to have solved up at the top. And so let me give you an example in a different industry to kind of illustrate the point a little bit. And the industry is auto detailing. And so I've been looking into building an auto detailing business for my son. Like, he likes cars and washing cars and stuff like that. And so we've been studying all of the details behind washing cars. And it's really been eye-opening for me because I don't know really anything at all about auto detailing up until, a few months ago when we started looking into it. And like, I just thought, heck, you got you get a bucket and like and a beach towel and some kind of soap and you're good, right? Let's just have at it. But the truth is, that might have been how you watch the cars, like in the 90s or the 80s or whatever. But today, there's a science behind it, man. I mean, it's unbelievable what you can do when it comes to auto detailing. And I haven't even gotten into the interior aspect. This is all just exterior. So for example, not scratching the paint when you wash the car, important. And, I always say, hey, just water the car down before you wash it and then have at it after that. Well, now they've got all these methods out there, right? So they have like the 2-bucket method, which is you have 2 buckets. Like one bucket is just your soapy water bucket, and then the other bucket is just a rinse bucket. And the idea is you get your microfiber cloth, which is a new thing, by the way. It's not just an ordinary beach towel. It's like you got this microfiber, towel or whatever. You get that, or some kind of a wash mitt, and you kind of get that all soapy, after rinsing the car down and everything. Then you wash the car. Then you wring the rag out so all the grime gets out. Then you dip it in the wash bucket, and so you just kind of wash the rag, and then wring it out again before you put it into the soap, and then you go back to the car. And the whole idea is by doing that cycle, you reduce, actually quite dramatically, the amount of grit that remains on the mitt or the wash rag before you put it back on the car. So therefore you don't get all these little micro abrasions in the paint, right? And so that solves it. So the reason I went into all that detail is because that solves a problem. That's a solution. The 2-bucket wash method is a solution for the problem of not scratching the paint. And so if that's, and that's an important point, right? Because if you scratch the paint, that's a big deal. But that's not the whole picture. That's just not scratching the paint. Like, what about the wheels? What about the tires? What about the molding? What about the windows, right? It's like all of those things need to be addressed. And the 2-bucket wash method isn't the only way to go about not scratching the paint either. They've also got this thing called a foam cannon, which you hook up to a pressure washer, and then you like douse your car with like thick, like shaving cream type soap. And so your whole car ends up turning into like this marshmallow, and then you wait for the foam to kind of, drag all the grit down. And basically the idea is that rather than having a soapy bucket where you have like the 2-bucket method, you kind of do away with the soapy bucket, only have the rinse bucket. And rather than having the soapy bucket, you just throw the soap right up onto the car by way of this foam cannon thing. And so that would be another solution to solve the problem of not scratching the paint. And so the reason that I'm bringing all of this up is because that is something that like auto detailing nerds kind of get into. It's like, how can we solve those issues so that we have a really nice end result of this shiny, pristine car? Because the client's goal, right, the guy that owns the car, that guy, all they want to do is make sure the car looks awesome and it stays looking awesome for as long as possible. Like that's the result. But of course, it involves more than just not scratching the paint. But the problem is, what if you came to the client and you said, hey, you know what? I'm going to deliver you we're going to do a strategy session, right? And the first thing we do is discover what you need and blah, blah, blah. And we kind of weigh the pros and cons of the foam cannon method versus the 2-bucket wash method. And well, we determined that we're going to go with the 2-bucket wash method. And there you go. That's the solution. And then you leave it at that. Like that tends to be how web designers tend to work with clients. They kind of provide a solution to a real problem. You don't want to scratch the paint. But it's kind of on that technical level, and it doesn't address all the other issues, which means that at the end of the day, the guy with the car hasn't had the wheels aren't trimmed, the tires aren't looking good, the moldings, nothing's done with that, the windows, and you haven't even touched the interior. So there's all these other levels of service that need to be applied, but you just kind of stop at, let me just show you the 2-bucket wash method or something like that. And when you look at it in the context of this auto detailing thing, it's really clear and obvious that nobody would ever stop there. Like you would never just do that and be like, okay, I've got a business now. You obviously have to go beyond that and take care of all of the exterior and the interior and have this whole thing so that you deliver the end result of this car that looks better than brand new every time you leave it. That kind of a situation. But when it comes to helping people with their businesses, a lot of times people don't think about all those other factors. They don't work their way up that 5-tiered problem ladder like we were just talking about. And they tend to just kind of get stuck down at that, just debating the pros and cons of, should we do the 2-bucket wash method? Should we do the foam cannon? That kind of ground level stuff. And that's why most web designers stay low ticket forever, because they just stick at that bottom rung of problems, which are the lowest value in terms of monetary value problems in your client's mind, because they don't even care, right? Like if you walked up to a guy and said to him, hey, let me take care of your car. You want me to do the 2-bucket wash method, or do you want me to use a foam cannon? They'd be like, I don't even know what any of that is. I don't care what you do. I just want the car to look great, right? Like when you're done, I want to be happy with the car. Like it needs to be clean, not scratched, not damaged, and looking great. That's what I don't care about foam cannons or whatever. So, but that's the issue, right? Like nobody would do that in the real world with auto detailing. Nobody would debate the pros and cons of the 2-bucket wash method, but all the time we get out there and say, hey, your site's not loading fast enough. You don't have an SSL certificate on there. You don't have alt tags in your images, or like all this kind of low value stuff. Whereas the client's sitting there thinking, man, my wife is yelling at me all the time, or I don't have the money to put my kids into school the way I want to, or we're stressed and bickering all the time, or I'm at work all the time and stressed out. It's like, those are the problems that they're really thinking about and suffering through. And the solution to be able to really help someone is to rise above the bottom stack of problems and make sure that you deliver results that address those top tier issues. And when you focus on delivering those types of results, suddenly the entire game changes. You don't have to rely on that 5-step, thing that we were just talking about, like the discovery session where then the strategy, and then the development, and then the review of what's going on. And then, the final step is launch. And it's not just launch the website, it's like launch the client out of your life. It's like, it just goes against everything that I think of as being the right approach to web design, because all of the steps along the way, like every one of those steps has lost all of its value today. Now, it used to be fine. Like we've talked before about the difference between software development projects, like the software lifecycle versus a web design lifecycle. And it used to be that they were very similar. And this 5-step approach works well for software, but for web design, it doesn't, because you pretty much know from the get-go what you're going to figure out in the discovery session. And the bottom line is the client's not getting the business they want, right? That's always like, make more money at my business. That's always the end result of the discovery session. Sometimes there's some nuanced details about why they think they're not making the money they used to, or maybe they're just getting started and trying to ramp up in the first place or whatever. But like the discovery session is always the same. Make more money, generate more business. That's what we're wanting to do. And so that's why when you hit the discovery session, it's always the same end result. Then you come up with the strategy, and the client doesn't have any idea what the strategy ought to be. And all web designers implement the same strategy. So when you get to the development part, everybody ends up with the same 5 pages, right? Like when we just first started talking about this, how can it be that if you're legitimately going through a discovery strategy and a development phase of your web design lifecycle, why does everybody always have the same stuff at the end of the day? It's because the clients don't know what to ask for. Everybody's always got the same problems, and web designers kind of stuck in this kind of framework mentality of what they need to create. And it's the home page, the about page, services page, contact us page, and then some evidence form page, right? Like, and the evidence is really highly dependent on the client. Maybe they have testimonials, maybe they have a portfolio, maybe before and after pictures, stuff like that. Some kind of evidence-based that they do a good job page. And then that's it, except for maybe a blog, right? It's like, and everybody has that same structure. And so, in fact, if you look at some people that offer like cheap websites, they're like, yeah, well, a 5-page website's going to be, and they say a 5-page website because that's the framework that everybody falls into. And so that's why the structure doesn't really work. And then you get to the review phase, and that's the part where you're asking the client if they think that everything that you just created is really going to work for them. And what is all that about? That's ridiculous. How are they supposed to know if it's going to work for them? Right? It'd be like if I asked somebody to build me an airplane, and then they assemble all of these things, and before we fly it, they say, hey, you think that's going to fly? I don't know. I don't know if it's going to fly. I know nothing about flying airplanes. My whole hope is that you put the plane together so that when we're in the air, we're safe and getting to where we want to go. It's like, don't ask me if it's going to fly. You tell me if it's going to fly, right? And that's the problem with the review section. And so now when you get, and so then the end result of that is the client's going to question themselves. Now that they see things beginning to come to life, they say, oh, you know what? I've got some new ideas. Or what if we move this over there? Or, I don't like these colors. Or, they begin to question all of this stuff because now you're putting it on them to decide if this is really going to work out or not. And they don't know. And they have new ideas and they have change requests and scope begins to creep. And it's like, the project just becomes to become unruly, and most people tend to blow through their budget at this point because clients are doing all these changes, and you have to keep doing what they say, and then it's a big problem. And then finally you get to the launch part where you think, okay, well finally we're done, and not only do you launch the site, but you launch the client out of your life, so then you can go do the same thing with the next client. And so that approach just doesn't work. It just does not work anymore. Now you'll land some clients, and I literally just went through a presentation this morning where that was the exact 5 steps that you're supposed to go through for this $10,000 website thing. And yeah, I guess you can sometimes land clients like that, but it just doesn't feel right. It doesn't seem like you're really serving the client. It just seems like it just seems so thin, right? It doesn't seem like you're not delivering the results, right? It's like you're just being told what to do and trying to do the best you can to pull it off, right? You're not bringing any leadership. There's no real difference between working with you versus going through those same 5 steps with somebody else. And what if somebody else charges less than you? Then what are you going to compete on? Price, right? That's a losing battle. Like, you don't want to be competing on price because that's the situation we're in right now. Everything's cheap. If you want a site, you can get one for $500. And you need to be charging somewhere more like $10,000 or $15,000 in order to be able to, build your own 6-figure web design business. Like, you need to be charging like 10 times more than everybody else. Otherwise, you're going to burn out. And on top of that, not only are you burning out, but clients aren't going to see the results that they need anyway. So that's a huge issue. So bringing it all back together again, we have this ladder or this scale of the types of problems that sometimes sound like Jerry Seinfeld. That's why I love Seinfeld. What a great compliment. So we have this scale of problems, and kind of at that base level are the technical ones. Then there's like the communication branding. Then there's the lead generation. And then there's the business problems. Then there's the life problems. And web designers tend to focus on the solutions that only address that bottom rung, whereas clients are really concerned about, getting results for that top rung. And so that tends to be the disconnect. That's where the value gap is. So if you've ever felt like I just can't get clients to see the value of what you're offering, it's because they're looking for value up here and you're talking about value down here, right? So they're looking for this beautiful car that looks better than when they bought it new, and you're talking about the 2-bucket wash method. That's why they're not seeing the value. So the way that you overcome that is you take an entire picture. You look at the entire picture and begin to focus on how can you work your way all the way up the ladder so that your client's not bickering at home with their spouse anymore over finances, or that they now have the money to take care of the mortgage payments that are getting out of control, or whatever it might be that's stressing them out on that life level, the top level. And then how does that affect downstream? Like, what does that mean about, increasing revenue instead of a drop in revenue? And now they're able to not only meet payroll, but they can hire more people. And they've streamlined their workflow in various ways. So they're not spending too much time working in the business. They can now begin to kind of oversee the business and, all those kind of top level problems. When you put together a solution that begins to address things at that level, suddenly you become a high ticket consultant. And you're beginning to bring business development as well as technical consulting. And when you put those two things together, you've got your tech stack, you've got your business development stack, thus the name DoubleStack, right? It's like you want to bring both of those two things together. And this is a fundamentally different approach from that 5-step process that everybody else goes through that ends in disaster almost all the time. So that's the ticket. That's the fastest way, the best way to really get behind your clients, serve them at a deeper level, and really do something dramatically different from what everyone else is doing. But it means you've got to have both stacks, right? You've got to be able to build a good website. You've got to be able to make sure that someone's brand is looking professional and established. But you also have to be thinking through, well, what can I do to hit these top level concerns that my clients have so that when I deliver what I can do, it's creating results at that level for them, right? It's the types, the top level stack of things. Those are the real issues that people care about. That's where they put the value. And if you can hit that, like if you can address those issues, you're going to see the value. And when I say the value, I'm talking like 10 times the value of what you would otherwise see selling the 2-bucket wash method or whatever, right? It's like, get up into that top level. And in order to do that, you got to have both stacks. You got to have the ability to do the things that you really need to do, but you also have to have the vision to know how to deploy your technical capabilities. You have to have both of those things. And this is a different world, because when it comes to software development, you don't really need the whole business side. You just need the tech side. But when it comes to web design, you have to have both. You have to have the ability to consult with your clients with regard to the how they can develop their actual business, like get more calls on the calendar, like get more customers through the door, like grow their revenue, like solve those types of business problems. And that, of course, then, moves into their actual life, day-to-day problems, get up into that area, but then also have the technical chops to pull it off, right? So both of those two things are what you need. So at the end of the day, you're going to need to be able to build a website. You're going to need to have some marketing tools and platforms at your disposal, like drip campaigns, email marketing, landing pages, sales funnels. And like, this is stuff I can show you how to do. Like, if you're interested in learning how to do those types of things, I can show you how to do it. And not very long either, because most of the time, it's not really a technical thing you have to learn. It's more putting a marketing wrapper around technical skills you already have, which is why you can make such fast progress. And then once you have that, then you go into the world of, well, what can I do to really make that higher level difference? That business development stuff. And you can apply both of those strategies together, and that really serves your client. So what you really need, instead of that stupid 5-step process that ends in the same cookie cutter thing for everybody, is you need like that double stack approach, right? Where you're providing business consulting and technical development, and you're not asking the client what they want you to do. You are showing up with the vision. It's like, that's a fundamental thing. It's a 180 flip. It's a flipping of the script, the turning of the tables, whatever analogy you want to say. That's what it is. It's like the old approach is you're trying to extract the vision from your client's mind by way of that stupid 5-step discovery session thing. Whereas the new approach is your clients are hiring you because of your vision. You're bringing the vision that actually enables them to, it illuminates a path that they otherwise wouldn't have seen had it not been for you, right? And that, of course, sets you up as an expert and an authority and a specialist. Like, you are the kind of person who can actually hit those top level results that they really care about, as opposed to everybody else who's just going to fumble around with all these, technical things and just wait to be told what to do. And so that's the key. And that's why so many web designers stay low ticket. It's because they don't ever reach the higher end of the kind of the problem spectrum that we were just talking about, like the life problems, the business problems, and the lead generation problems. And instead, everybody just stays stuck with like branding and tech stuff. And that's just not going to cut it. You can't do it like that if you're trying to build a 6-figure business that you can kind of run on your own like that. Now, if you only want to focus on technology and branding, there is a place for that, but you got to go work at an agency where someone else worries about the other things, right? So like, if you're only interested in writing code, for example, then go get a job where all you have to do is write code. But you're going to frustrate yourself by staying at that bottom rung, focusing on all that tech stuff that you can offer if you're trying to build your own business. So Robin says, love the new approach. It has made my business grow so much in recurring revenue. And that's another really great point. Robin, thank you for bringing that up, because that 5th step, the launch step, instead of launching the site and then launching the client out of your life, the whole idea is you keep the client in your life so that you can continue to drive these results for them on an ongoing basis. But in order to do that, you're going to have to get into that lead generation, solving these business problems, dialing in these life problems, those higher end problems. And then you keep the clients that you have. They pay you somewhere around $1,000 a month or more. And then the next thing you know, all you really need is like, 7 or 8 clients, something like that, 6, 7, 8 clients, and you're in the 6 figures on recurring revenue. So awesome. So I just wanted to kind of jump in with that and kind of share some light, if I could, on why most web designers stay low ticket forever, and why it's kind of a losing battle to kind of stick with that 5-step traditional approach, that always ends in the same 5 pages for everybody anyway. And so I think kind of on the surface, people are beginning to get the sense, you know what, this is outdated, this is old, this is cookie cutter, this is what everybody else is doing. And if I want to do something different, I need a new, fresh approach. And this kind of double stack approach is the new, fresh approach. It's where you really actually serve clients by solving the problems that are at that higher level, by delivering the results for life and business problems, lead generation issues, and things like that, while also having the technical chops to pull it all together. So if this is the kind of shift you want to put in your business, and if this is making sense to you, head over to doublestack.net/call and let's set up a time to talk. And that would be great to kind of learn a little bit more about your business, what you're shooting for, what kind of markets you would like to be working with, what kind of clients you want. And what we'll then do is we'll put a step-by-step approach in place to bring all of that to life as fast as we can. So head on over to doublestack.net/call. You'll see my calendar pop up. Find a time that works for you. And I look forward to talking to you soon. Have a great week.